There comes a moment in a person's life when heaven issues a divine summons, when God interrupts the ordinary cycles that have held them and announces a supernatural shift in the spirit. As you move toward the 25th of November, you are stepping into such a moment. This is not just a date on the calendar, it is a spiritual threshold, a window in time where the hand of God reaches into your timeline to dismantle whatever has subdued your potential, resisted your progress, or whispered impossibilities over your destiny. Something is about to break open, something ancient, something that has lingered long enough, something that has believed it could outlive you, but it will not. Every curse that has shadowed your lineage, every altar erected against your advancement, every cycle of stagnation that has replayed through generations, all of it is coming under divine judgment. You may not have understood why certain battles seemed unending. You may not have known why the same obstacles resurfaced, no matter how diligently you prayed, fasted, or fought. But heaven has inspected the foundations, and the verdict has been issued. The altars that empowered those patterns will crumble. The curses that claimed authority over your story will lose all legal rights. The strongholds that looked immovable will be ground into dust. Before the 25th of November arrives, the Lord is pulling down invisible structures that have manipulated outcomes in your life. Ancient agreements made in ignorance, covenants you never consented to but inherited, words spoken in anger or bitterness, environments saturated with spiritual resistance. They are being overruled by the blood of Jesus. You are entering a season of divine cleansing where God Himself dismantles the spiritual architecture of oppression. He is burning the scripts of sabotage. He is breaking the seal on your destiny scroll. He is rewriting the narrative that others thought they had the authority to impose. This is your moment to rise in spiritual audacity. Lift your voice and legislate your future. Decree that every altar of delay, denial, sickness, poverty, confusion, or limitation collapses under the weight of God's glory. Refuse to let the enemy maintain any foothold in your life. Stand in the full stature of one redeemed, authorized, and empowered by heaven. Declare that no curse will dictate your outcomes, no pattern will imprison your purpose, and no demonic trafficking will access your path. Heaven is aligning things in your favor. Heaven is shifting realms. Heaven is placing your name in rooms where your feet have not yet walked. Before the 25th of November, God is pulling you out of every spiritual cage. Cages built by fear, cages sustained by trauma, cages reinforced by generational errors. You are stepping into unprecedented liberty. The wind of deliverance is blowing into your house, your mind, your finances, your relationships, your health. Where there was heaviness, there will be ease. Where there was confusion, there will be clarity. Where there was loss, there will be recovery. Where there was delay, there will be acceleration. The chains are breaking. The locks are snapping. The gates are opening. Every altar that fed on your peace will starve. Every altar that demanded your tears will lose its power. Every altar that tracked your movements and monitored your rising will be silenced. The spiritual networks linked to those altars, the messengers, the watchers, the whisperers, the manipulators of dreams, are being shut down. Light is exposing what was hidden. The fire of God is consuming what was planted. The sword of the Spirit is severing what was attached. And the angels assigned to your destiny are now enforcing divine order in your life. This is the hour of reversal. The curses that once followed you will turn into blessings that overtake you. The forces that resisted you will become stepping stones beneath your feet. The things that once intimidated you will bow to the authority God has placed upon you. You are rising out of obscurity into visibility, out of silence into significance, out of frustration into fulfillment, out of spiritual warfare into spiritual dominion. Heaven is endorsing your next move. Heaven is sponsoring your elevation. Heaven is backing your voice. Before the 25th of November, expect unusual breakthroughs. Expect sudden closures of old doors and unexpected openings of new pathways. Expect divine encounters. Expect prophetic instructions. Expect the spotlight of heaven to shine on places within you that were waiting to be awakened. Expect a shift so undeniable that even your enemies will acknowledge that God has touched your life. Expect a lifting so dramatic that you will know it was not by power, not by might, but by the Spirit of the living God. You are crossing a line in the Spirit. What held you before cannot hold you now. What resisted you before cannot withstand you now. What slowed you down before cannot stop you now. Your season has changed. Your atmosphere has changed. Your identity has changed. The old chains do not fit anymore. The old labels do not apply anymore. The old limits are no longer valid. You are stepping into purpose, power, and prophetic momentum. Before the 25th of November, every altar and every curse that dared to stand between you and your divine assignment will be destroyed. And as they fall, you will rise into everything heaven wrote about you from the beginning of time. Every curse that has shadowed your lineage is being brought before the court of heaven, and divine justice is now being executed on your behalf. There are things that attached themselves to your bloodline long before you were born, things that followed your parents, your grandparents, and those before them. And though you did not choose those battles, God has chosen this moment to settle them. You have been wrestling with forces that were older than your lifetime, but heaven has now issued a mandate to break the continuity of those patterns. You will no longer carry burdens that were never meant for you, nor will hidden agreements from previous generations decide the outcomes of your life or the direction of your destiny. You are standing in a prophetic intersection where generational curses are confronted by generational blessings, and the latter is about to triumph. Every altar erected against your advancement, whether in ignorance, malice, jealousy, or spiritual manipulation, is losing its influence over you. Some altars were built through repeated behaviors, negative cycles, or environments saturated with fear, trauma, and oppression. Others were erected through words spoken carelessly, rituals performed unknowingly, or associations that introduced spiritual contamination into your life. But now the fire of God is searching out every root, every hidden structure, every spiritual system designed to hinder you, and it is consuming their power. The altars that once demanded your energy, your joy, your peace, and your progress are being dismantled by the authority of the blood, leaving no trace of their previous dominance. You are stepping into a place where the only altar influencing your life is the altar of the living God. Every cycle of stagnation that has replayed itself year after year, season after season, is coming to an abrupt end. You may have wondered why certain situations always found a way back into your life, no matter how far you moved or how much you changed. Cycles of delay, cycles of disappointment, cycles of near breakthroughs that never fully manifested, cycles of rising only to fall again. These patterns formed a spiritual rhythm that attempted to dictate your progress. But heaven is interrupting that rhythm. God is breaking the loop. The repetitive frustrations that stole your momentum are losing their ability to resurface. What once recycled itself will now be reversed, and what tried to keep you going in circles will now propel you forward with supernatural acceleration. You may not have understood why certain battles seemed unending, why the same old problems disguised themselves in new forms, or why the enemy always found a way to pull you back to familiar struggles. But the Spirit of God is revealing that these were not random occurrences. They were connected to spiritual platforms empowered by ancient altars. These altars acted like anchors, pulling your life into old patterns even when your faith was urging you to move ahead. They monitored your progress, resisted your elevation, and magnified challenges at critical moments. But the time for these invisible manipulations has expired, for the hand of God has lifted to destroy the very platforms that gave them access to your life. You are being disconnected from every spiritual anchor that once held you hostage. You may not have known why certain relationships drained you, why certain doors remained shut despite your effort, or why some opportunities dissolved right when you were closest to breakthrough. But everything that seemed like opposition in the natural was often rooted in spiritual interference. God had to expose the invisible mechanisms behind the visible struggles, and now He is dismantling them one by one. The altars that empowered emotional instability, financial warfare, relational breakdowns, and mental exhaustion are collapsing under divine judgment. The spiritual fog that clouded your clarity is lifting, and you will see with new eyes. What once confused you will no longer have the ability to blur your spiritual perception. Heaven has now inspected the foundations of your life, and everything that was inconsistent with your divine purpose is being uprooted. Foundational cracks caused by childhood experiences, familial environments, or generational trauma are being filled with divine healing. The wounds that created vulnerabilities in your spirit are being addressed by the power of God. No longer will the enemy exploit the cracks in your soul. No longer will old memories open doors for new attacks. No longer will your past be a breeding ground for future warfare. God is sealing the breaches, repairing what was broken, and restoring the structural integrity of your spiritual foundation so that nothing contrary can take root in your life again. The altars that fueled internal battles, battles of self doubt, battles of insecurity, battles of fear and unworthiness, are being stripped of their authority. Those whispering voices that told you you were not enough, that your dreams were too big, or that your destiny was out of reach were not born from your own mind. They were echoes from spiritual systems that sought to undermine your identity. But now God is silencing every voice that does not align with heaven's decree over your life. You are being reintroduced to yourself, the version of you that existed before the world wounded you, before life pressured you, before the enemy lied to you. You are stepping into a clearer, stronger, more confident dimension of who God intended you to be. The curses that claimed legal rights over your destiny through the errors of those before you are being overturned by the blood of Jesus. There were covenants established in moments of desperation, fear, ignorance, or compromise that opened spiritual doors you never intended to walk through. But heaven has intervened. The blood has spoken a better word over your life, a word that nullifies every negative decree and every binding agreement. You are being released from the spiritual debts of your bloodline. What your ancestors struggled to overcome, you will conquer with ease. What limited them will no longer limit you. What defeated them will not defeat you. You are stepping into victories they longed for but never experienced. The strongholds that looked immovable are being ground into dust. These strongholds were not simple obstacles. They were fortified spiritual structures that resisted transformation. They stood between you and your next level. They hindered your elevation and delayed your breakthroughs and attempted to hold your destiny hostage. But now the power of God is collapsing them from the inside out. The walls are shaking, the foundations are cracking, and the spiritual architecture built to confine you is being destroyed. You will not just walk away free, you will walk away with authority, with clarity, and with the spoils of victory. The systems, patterns, and spiritual frameworks that once opposed you are losing their influence permanently. Their grip is breaking, their reach is shrinking, their relevance is fading. You are rising above them, outgrowing them, and stepping into the dimension of life where they no longer recognize your frequency. What once tracked you cannot trace you. What once hindered you cannot touch you. What once limited you cannot locate you. You are ascending into a realm where the only thing shaping your future is the hand of God, and everything that once tried to hold you back is powerless to continue its work before the 25th of November arrives. The hand of God is reaching into the unseen dimensions of your life, and pulling down invisible structures that have silently manipulated your outcomes. These were not random obstacles or accidental delays. They were spiritual frameworks engineered to reroute your progress, distort your expectations, and limit your potential. For years, they operated in the shadows, shaping your circumstances without your awareness, weaving patterns that made you question your worth, your calling, and even your prayers. But heaven has initiated a spiritual audit. Every hidden mechanism influencing your destiny is now being exposed under the penetrating light of divine revelation. What was once concealed is being dragged into visibility, and what was once tolerated in the unseen realm is being violently uprooted by the authority of God. Ancient agreements made outside your knowledge are being confronted by the righteousness of Christ. These agreements may have been established generations before your birth in moments of fear, illness, desperation, or spiritual ignorance. They became invisible legalities that granted the enemy unwarranted influence over your life. They granted access to cycles you never consented to and battles you never prepared for. But now, the blood of Jesus is erasing every signature, canceling every claim, and voiding every spiritual contract that attempted to dictate your future. Heaven is overruling the verdicts that were written against you. The divine gavel is falling, and everything that stood in opposition to your destiny is losing its legitimacy. Covenants you never agreed to but inherited are dissolving under the weight of divine intervention. These were spiritual inheritances that came attached to your bloodline. Things nobody talked about, things nobody understood, things everyone felt but could not explain. They influenced the way your family saw money, relationships, identity, and breakthrough. They created invisible ceilings that no one seemed to break through. But now those inherited limitations are being broken. You are the interruption to the generational storyline. You are the one chosen to stop what stopped those before you. The patterns that chased your ancestors will not follow you into the next season. The chains that wrapped around their dreams will not wrap around yours. Words spoken over your life, careless words, angry words, fearful words, defeated words, are being overturned by the word of the Lord. Words carry power, and some statements released into your environment became like seeds planted into the soil of your spirit. They took root. They germinated. They created expectations, mindsets, and internal limitations. But now God is uprooting the negative harvest of every spoken curse. Every word that did not align with heaven's decree is being rendered powerless. You are being liberated from the weight of others' assumptions, projections, and judgments. Your identity is no longer tied to what people said. It is aligned with what God has always known about you. Environments saturated with resistance, places where you felt unseen, unheard, misunderstood, or spiritually suffocated, are losing their influence over your life. You were not imagining the heaviness you felt. You were not imagining the strange opposition. Some environments were spiritually hostile because they were not aligned with your destiny. They were never meant to sustain your growth or carry your calling. God is now removing the residue of those environments from your spirit. He is detoxing your mind from their limitations. He is cleansing your soul from their emotional imprints. You will no longer carry the weight of places that were never meant to hold your future. This season marks the beginning of divine cleansing. God is not just addressing what you see, He is dismantling what existed long before you were aware of it. He is breaking the spiritual architecture of oppression, the underlying structures that fed discouragement, disappointment, and delay. He is dismantling invisible grids that patterned your thoughts, your emotions, and your decisions. He is severing connections between your present battles and your ancestral past. You are being spiritually detoxed from the inside out. Old attachments are dissolving. Old fears are melting away. Old emotional triggers are losing their power. God is burning the scripts of sabotage, the narratives the enemy wrote about your life, The stories that suggested you would never rise, never break through, never walk in freedom. These scripts influenced how you saw yourself, how you approached opportunities, and how you interpreted setbacks. They made you internalize defeat and normalize disappointment. But heaven is rewriting your narrative. Every script that once predicted failure is being replaced by a script that prophesies victory. Every narrative that once minimized your worth is being replaced by a narrative that amplifies your divine identity. Heaven is handing you a new storyline. The seals on your destiny scroll are being broken, unlocking dimensions of purpose that were dormant within you. The enemy worked tirelessly to keep certain parts of your calling hidden, buried beneath layers of confusion, distraction, or spiritual warfare. But now those seals are breaking. You are gaining access to realms of clarity you've never experienced before. You will perceive divine strategies, creative insights, and spiritual instructions with precision and confidence. The dreams within you that were once muted are awakening. The vision that was once blurred is coming into focus. You are stepping into alignment with heaven's original intention for your life. The narrative others try to impose on you, the labels, the limitations, the expectations are being stripped away. People may have thought they had the right to define your identity based on their experiences with you or their opinions of you. But their interpretations were never the final word. Heaven is reclaiming the authorship of your story. The identity you settled for is dissolving. The identity God ordained is emerging. You are rising into a version of yourself that carries authority, clarity, and spiritual weight. The shadows of what others believed about you are lifting, revealing the fullness of who you were always meant to be. Everything that once confined your potential is being overturned by the power of God. Internal prisons are breaking open. Spiritual restraints are snapping. Mental barriers are collapsing. The invisible systems that once dictated your outcomes cannot withstand the force of what heaven is releasing. You are stepping out of the old into the new, out of restriction into expansion, out of bondage into destiny. You are being positioned for a breakthrough that is not temporary but permanent, not partial but complete, not shallow but deeply transformative. This is your moment to rise with a boldness you did not even know you carried. For heaven is summoning you into a posture of spiritual audacity that commands the atmosphere. You are not stepping into this moment timidly or cautiously. You are stepping into it with authority because the season you are entering requires a different version of you. The battles you have survived, the storms you have endured, and the mountains you have climbed have prepared you for a new dimension of spiritual stature. You are not the same person who struggled through the valleys of uncertainty. You are not the same person who wrestled with doubt and fear. You are now stepping into the identity heaven always ordained, one equipped to decree, to legislate, and to shift the spiritual climate around you. Lift your voice and legislate your future with conviction, for heaven responds to those who speak from a place of alignment with divine purpose. Your words in this season carry prophetic weight, and what you declare will echo into dimensions you cannot see. When you decree breakthrough, the heavens will move. When you decree release, chains will snap. When you decree restoration, the winds will shift. You are no longer whispering requests. You are issuing spiritual orders that reverberate through realms of power. You are aligning your voice with the voice of God, and when your sound merges with His intention, nothing in the seen or unseen world can oppose what is spoken. Decree that every altar of delay, denial, and distraction collapses under the weight of divine glory. These altars were systems of resistance that attempted to regulate your progress, to dictate your pace, and to determine your outcomes. They stood at strategic points in your journey, waiting to interfere when you reached moments of breakthrough. But your declaration in this season is a demolition order. Your words are dismantling the structures that once delayed your acceleration. Your voice is releasing fire into every region of spiritual opposition. What once took years to overcome will fall in a moment because the authority of God is backing your decree. Refuse to allow the enemy to maintain any foothold in your life, for even a small foothold can grow into a stronghold if left unchallenged. You are entering a season where your tolerance for old patterns must decrease because your destiny demands clarity and dominion. The strategies the enemy used in the past will no longer be effective, for you are rising with discernment sharp enough to recognize every subtle attack. You are closing every gate, shutting every door, and sealing every access point the enemy once exploited. You are reclaiming your territory mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, and declaring that no unauthorized influence can enter your life. Stand in the full stature of one who has been redeemed, authorized, and empowered by heaven. You are not operating from a place of lack. You are operating from a place of inheritance. You are not fighting for victory. You are enforcing victory. Your redemption is not a concept, it is a legal reality. You are a citizen of a kingdom that cannot be shaken, a representative of a government that cannot fail, an ambassador of a power that cannot be overthrown. When you stand with the backing of the Almighty. When you speak with the authority of the one who sent you. When you move with the momentum of heaven. Declare that no curse will dictate your decisions, your emotions, or your outcomes. What once manipulated your choices will no longer influence your path. You are breaking out of internal prisons that were created by past experiences, painful memories, or emotional wounds. Those prisons tried to shape your thinking and limit your capacity. But now your mind is being renewed by the Spirit of God. Every thought that contradicted your purpose is being evicted. Every lie that tried to anchor you in fear is being uprooted. You are stepping into mental liberty, where clarity replaces confusion, peace replaces anxiety, and confidence replaces doubt. Declare that no pattern will imprison your future. Cycles of poverty, cycles of sickness, cycles of heartbreak, cycles of instability. These spiritual repetitions that once defined your journey are coming to an end. You are disrupting the timelines the enemy crafted for your life. You are interrupting the cycles that tried to repeat themselves through generations. The enemy will no longer use the same strategies against you because you now carry the wisdom to recognize and dismantle them. You are erecting new patterns, patterns of abundance, patterns of wholeness, patterns of divine alignment, patterns of consistent progress. Declare that no demonic trafficking will access your path. There were seasons where you felt watched, monitored, and spiritually pursued. You sensed movement in the atmosphere. You felt the weight of invisible interference. And you endured battles that did not match your natural environment. But that season is breaking. The road before you is being sanctified. The air around you is being cleared. The spiritual pathways leading to your destiny are being guarded by heavenly forces. No enemy surveillance, no demonic manipulation, and no spiritual interference will be permitted to operate in your direction. Your path is being covered, shielded, and reinforced by divine protection. Heaven is aligning things in your favor in ways you cannot imagine. Divine connections are forming. Strategic alliances are emerging. Opportunities are shifting toward you. Things you thought were delayed are being accelerated. Doors that were once shut are beginning to unlock. God is orchestrating movements behind the scenes, moves that will surprise you, elevate you, and position you precisely where He intended you to be. You are stepping into a realm where divine timing intersects with divine favor, creating outcomes that defy natural explanation. Heaven is placing your name in rooms your feet have not yet entered. Conversations are happening about you in places where you have no physical presence yet. Decisions are being made that will benefit you. People are being stirred to help you. Resources are being directed towards you. You are being positioned in the minds of those who carry the authority to sponsor your next level. Your name is becoming a divine seed planted in strategic environments. The same God who elevates in private is preparing to reveal what he has been cultivating within you.